Okay, we'll start with this. Well, former WBC Super Bantamweight champion Bobby Juarez is pursuing a rematch with the reigning Super Bantamweight champion, WBC Super Bantamweight champion, Julian Luna. And they are eyeing either April or May for the proposed rematch, provided conditions are permissible to stage a rematch. And I'm going to be honest here, folks. I've been a big fan of Bobby Juarez over the years. I think she's an excellent fighter. I think she was a distinguished champion. But in a rematch situation with Julian Luna,
who's 14 years younger,
I don't know what kind of odds I can give Bobby Juarez to win the title back. I just don't. I don't know if you guys saw the fight.
In all likelihood, you didn't.
Looked like your run-of-the-mill situation, run-of-the-mill title defense, a situation that perhaps seemed parallel to the Bonita Fernandez fight. Bonita Fernandez, who Bobby Juarez successfully defended her title against.
There wasn't much cause for concern here.
I mean, not that much. Julian Luna didn't have anywhere near the level of professional experience that Bobby Juarez had working for her. The most that really was working against Bobby Juarez was her age and the fact that it had been roughly 12 months since her last fight.
That Julian was a little bit more active.
That Julian Luna was in action earlier that same year. That Julian Luna, the younger fighter, was also the busier fighter in the year of 2020, whereas Bobby Juarez, the then defending champion, hadn't had a fight since the year before. That, coupled with Barbie's age, was cause for concern, but given Barbie's level of expertise, her level of experience as a professional boxer, you figure she should make it through this one, and she didn't. And in hindsight, it wasn't any one thing. Bobby Juarez was thoroughly outboxed and battered.
She got beat so bad she thought Luna loaded her wraps.
To which Julian Luna immediately invited her to inspect her gloves, inspect her wraps, as there was no foul play at work here. Put simply, it was just a one-sided beating from the opening bell to the final bell.
The only thing working for Bobby now is that it won't have been a year's time since she last had a fight.
But she is coming off a loss, and she isn't getting any younger. She was 40 when she suffered that loss to Julian Luna. She's 41 now.
Julian looked too big and too strong for her in there.
And too accurate. Barbie didn't take those punches well. I mean, Julian Luna accumulated a significant amount of damage almost immediately.
What the hell's Bobby going to do differently in a rematch?
I don't fault her for wanting a rematch. I don't fault her for wanting to run it back. But if you ask me, do I like her chances, I just don't know what to say. I don't know what the hell she's going to do differently in a second fight. She's behaving the way you expect a fighter to behave. A true blue, blood and guts, thick and thin fighter. She's doing what you expect a fighter to do. It's just that, put simply, I don't know what she can do differently. Time certainly isn't on her side.
And it wasn't any one thing.
Julian Luna seemed to have had her number, and she might still have her number in a second fight, in a rematch, because Bobby didn't just get battered in there. She was outboxed. She was effectively figured out.
She didn't take those punches well either.
Bobby Juarez has fought 68 times since May of 1998. She's got a professional record of 54 wins, 10 losses, 4 draws.
She's been fighting for 23 years.
That's only 3 years less than Julian Luna's been alive. That's basically saying that while Bobby Juarez was in the beginning stages of her professional boxing career, Julian Luna was learning to walk and use the potty.
Yeah. Eating a split peas and applesauce.
That's how long Bobby's been around. And for a fighter who's been around that long, well, the full brunt of those 68 professional contests likely came crashing down on her. The full weight of it came crashing down on her in October of 2020 when she was battered by the 14 years younger Julian Luna. That being said, I don't know if Bobby can rebound off of this. It'd be a fairy tale if she did.
But she took a lot of punishment.
This ain't like Anthony Joshua rebounding off the loss to Andy Ruiz in the immediate rematch, because Anthony Joshua wasn't 41 fucking years old when that rematch happened. So I'm just giving it to you straight. They can have the rematch in either April or May, but I don't know what kind of odds you can give Barbie to win that WBC title back. In heavyweight news, some recent comments from Anthony Joshua have gotten a lot of attention. Per a tweet from Michael Benson, Anthony Joshua on Tyson Fury. The press conference antics, fight antics, hands behind the back. I love that stuff. That's his job. He's a warm-up act. He's there to do all that. But ultimately, my job's to close the show. And that's all that matters. For him, he said after he fights me, maybe he fights Chisora and he's ready to go off into the sunset. For me, I've got so much more I want to do. I'm looking past him. I want more. This isn't where it stops.
He called Tyson Fury a warm-up act.
Don't misunderstand me. I think Tyson Fury is an excellent boxer. I think that this fight could be priced at even money. Hell, I'll go as far as saying as some people think Anthony Joshua is the underdog in all of this.
Yes, some people think he is.
But these comments from Anthony Joshua are not exclusive to what happens during a fight. He's referencing Tyson Fury, the showman, the spectacle. And in many ways, yeah, he's right.
He is.
Tyson Fury's a warm-up act. Look, what's the point in running your fucking mouth? As soon as you hear Anthony Joshua has a fight, you hear he has a fight, you know he's booked, you start talking about how he's avoiding you and he's ducking you and he's a coward, and you do this all the way up until he actually has the fight.
Yeah.
After the fight, you do the same thing. You're running your jibs, you're running your mouth, only so that when it's your turn, all these difficulties start to arise.
Oh, now there's a problem.
Now we're no closer to that fight than we were last year. Now, you can't say with any certainty that the fight is imminent. When it's your turn,
Yours.
the tune changes, and it changes distinctly.
Why can't this guy ever keep the same energy?
And why is he allowed to contradict himself so often? Immediately after the Pulev fight, this guy was carrying on as if Anthony Joshua doesn't want to fight him, as if Anthony Joshua is going to try to duck him, only so that here today, he can be the one.
Saying they ain't about the fight.
Tell you, Tyson Fury's recent interviews have left us with a lot to think about, a lot to mull over before we can actually get some conclusive answers.
Everything's a fucking circus with this guy.
So when Anthony Joshua references Tyson Fury's constant shenanigans, his antics, as being a warm-up act, I can't help but agree that, yeah, that's what the guy is.
It's like amateur hour with this guy.
He's a warm-up act.
That's what he is.
Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder's two fights were a prelude, a warm-up act to this fight.
This is the big show.
This is the main course. This is the main event.
This is what it's all about.
You didn't make with Vladimir Klitschko or Deontay Wilder 2 times what you stand to make fighting Anthony Joshua, and you're not going to make that fighting anyone else.
You won't.
Let's be honest, folks. Tyson Fury cannot secure the bag with a Agit Kabayel that Anthony Joshua can secure with a Kubrat Pulev.
Neither Agit Kabayel or Kubrat Pulev are popular in the United Kingdom.
But I'll tell you something. I'll tell you what's consistent. You could swap out Agit Kabayel with Kubrat Pulev, put him in the ring with Anthony Joshua, and Joshua's going to get what Joshua's going to get. The same cannot be said for Tyson Fury, because Tyson Fury is a warm-up act. Excellent boxer, few lapses in character, few lapses in judgment, but all the same, he's an excellent boxer, but he's also a warm-up act. Tyson Fury won't make fighting anyone else what he stands to make fighting Anthony Joshua. And even if the same is true in reverse, there's a distinct difference between what these two fighters generate, what they bring in, independently of each other.
That's because Tyson is a warm-up act.
Excellent boxer, yes. He's had some high-profile victories, though all the same compared to Anthony Joshua, he's a warm-up act. I mean, if they could have put Tyson Fury and Agit Kabayel in the ring and staged that as a pay-per-view, a successful pay-per-view, they would have. But they knew that they couldn't. Wasn't the reason that fight fizzled out. Wasn't the reason that Tyson Fury didn't get to have a fight late last year. Wasn't the reason for this because they couldn't get the money up? Because he was dissatisfied with what money was on the table?
Wasn't that it?
I'm not telling you that Tyson Fury isn't an excellent boxer. He is an excellent boxer. And I'm not telling you that this isn't a 50-50 fight. In many ways, it is a 50-50 fight. I wouldn't be surprised if the bookies have this priced at even money or close to it. All those things are true, but that doesn't change that compared to Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury is a warm-up act. There's a distinct difference with the kind of attention that Tyson Fury's fight with Vladimir got and
AJ's fight.
Anthony Joshua's fight with Vladimir got. There's a difference.
There is.
And there's a difference in, what kind of money these two guys can generate independently of each other. You couldn't put Tyson Fury in there with Kubrat Pulev and try to bill that as a pay-per-view. No one would buy it.
Because he's a warm-up act.
I'll tell you something. He's not going to stop being a warm-up act until he cuts the shit and gets into that squared circle with that guy Anthony Joshua. That's the only way Tyson Fury is going to get out of his shadow. Make no mistake. Tyson Fury is not the global celebrity that Anthony Joshua is.
You're fucking dreaming if you believe that.
The costumes, the regalia, the catchphrases, the no man born of his mother can beat Tyson Fury, the you big dosser stuff. It's all nice.
It's good.
All the bells and whistles, but It's a warm-up act. If it's anything, it's that.
That's just build-up.
Anthony Joshua ain't got to do all that stuff to sell a fight. He ain't got to do it to sell a fight with an unknown Bulgarian any more than he has to do it to sell a fight with an unknown Russian. Do you think that either Alexander Povetkin or Kubrat Pulev are household names over there in the United Kingdom? No.
Nah.
Of course not.
That's what separates a warm-up act from the main event.
Anthony Joshua doesn't have to do all that stuff to sell a fight. Tyson Fury does.
I don't give a shit who you think wins the fight.
That's not even what the fuck we're talking about. We're talking about Anthony Joshua's comments in reference to Tyson Fury's antics and him being a warm-up act to something bigger. It's quite right. There's a reason that Tyson Fury, upon his big comeback, upon his return, decided to go after Deontay Wilder instead of Anthony Joshua. We all know that he would have got more money fighting Joshua, win or lose.
And what he got fighting Wilder 2 times.
And I'm not about to let his apologists rewrite history. There was an offer on the table for the both of them, for both Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, to take on Anthony Joshua. But Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder are both just warm-up acts.
Warm-up acts who passed on that offer to fight each other instead.
To warm everybody up. Need I remind you, it was Tyson Fury that said that he tricked Al Heyman into giving him the Wilder fight.
He didn't have to trick Eddie.
Eddie offered him the fight outright. No tricks.
They weren't needed.
They weren't necessary. This ain't no warm-up act. And maybe, at its heart, at its base, that's the root of the problem with Tyson Fury. This just isn't what he's used to.
He's fought on some big stages.
Fought in some big fights. But in those big fights, the pressure wasn't ever really on him. The pressure wasn't on him to beat Vlad. He was the underdog. And the pressure wasn't really on him in both of those Wilder fights, as it was Wilder that was the defending champion.
Now it's different.
Now, the pressure, as it were, is distributed evenly between Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury.
You're in the big leagues now.
And finally, former WBC super middleweight champion David Benavidez says he needs to earn the Canelo fight, and he's going to keep calling Jermall Charlo out. He's quoted as saying, "I want to earn the Canelo fight. I feel like the way I earn the Canelo fight is going through all these people, Billy Joe Saunders, Jermall Charlo, Caleb Plant, and I'm sure I can make it happen. I'm 100% sure I can beat all these guys," he said. "So the only thing I need is an opportunity right now, and at the end of the day, boxing wins because these are the fights fans want to see. I feel like Plant is going to sit out as long as he can until he gets the Canelo fight because for him, it's just business. And business-wise, that fight makes more sense to him," said Benavidez. "I feel like I'm more of a threat and he loses more against me than if he loses against Canelo. But even if he gets the Canelo fight and he beats him or loses, I still want to fight Caleb Plant either way. I feel like there's a lot of unsettled business we need to settle. With Alvarez and Plant not being viable options at the moment, Benavidez is instead focusing on a meeting with 160-pound WBC champion Jermall Charlo. I'm going to keep calling him out. I'm going to keep antagonizing him. I'm going to keep pushing his buttons until he has to see me in the ring," said Benavidez. "Hopefully that fight happens. I feel like for me, just talking about which way my career wants to go, I feel like that has to be one of the fights I have to get. That'll be his last fight at 168. I'll send him back down to 160.
This is a stroke of genius from David Benavidez.
Though it's only a stroke of genius if he follows through with it. It's only a stroke of genius if he actually exacts this plan to apply pressure, not on someone who's with some other outfit on some other side of the street, but to apply pressure on one of his own stablemates.
That's how you do it.
Some other guy on some other side of the street, whether it's Canelo Alvarez or someone else. Them just being on some other side of the street creates friction, creates obstacles and difficulties that have to be worked around. Someone who's on some other side of the street. But Jermall Charlo, he doesn't have that excuse.
He doesn't.
Wasn't he running his jibs about all the different things he'd do to David Benavidez if and when he moves up? Isn't that a fight that he said that he wanted, only for him to double back on it based on
Age?
David Benavidez's age and whether or not he's had a COVID-19 vaccine?
The fuck kind of shit is that?
It's a stroke of genius. It really is. It's a stroke of genius for David Benavidez, a fighter of Mexican descent, to call out Jermall Charlo, and here's why.
With Charlo, and I'm gonna say, I'll say it. I comment on David Benavidez's post. I comment on Charlo's post. I said, Charlo, you're representing my nationality and you better go defend yourself. Go defend us.
Defend us,
motherfucker.
And I can say that as a boxing fan who spent money on Charlo's pay-per-view event.
Is he about to pick his nose?
I can tell him as a fan, brother.
Yeah, brother.
David Benavidez is calling you out, and you represented my. You better go do something about that.
Oh, my Hulkamaniacs.
Because this is your profession. This is not my profession.
Yeah, brother.
My profession is to draw pictures of the shit. Your profession is to fight the motherfucker. And you opened your mouth to say you're going to fight him. So, Charlo, you better go defend my nationality in
Now, bear in mind, Jamal Charlo, in all likelihood, doesn't know who this person is. And Jamal Charlo isn't actually fighting for this person's nationality, or his Jamal Charlo is a prize fighter, and what he's actually fighting for are prizes. No more, no less. I don't even know that we could categorize Jamal Charlo as a legacy fighter. A prize fighter, who fights for more than just a prize. I don't know that Jamal is that kind of guy, but in this kid's mind,
Jamal is fighting for him.
and he's not alone. There are a lot of people out there who view the sport of boxing through this lens, this specific lens. Let's not kid ourselves. National, ethnic, and racial pride is a recurring theme in the sport of boxing.
That stuff doesn't mean as much to me as it does to him.
That kind of stuff doesn't mean as much to me as it means to a lot of people, because from where I'm sitting, those kinds of people, those kinds of individuals that have so much riding on what are complete strangers. So much riding on athletes. Those kinds of people are likely missing certain things in their day-to-day lives that they compensate for by living vicariously through
fighters.
These athletes. I mean, I understand being proud of people that are from the same place as you, that have the same kind of face as you, so on and so forth. I get it.
I get it.
But there is a line, and for some, that line is very blurry. Individuals like the one represented here. These kinds of individuals are going to see David Benavidez, a fighter of Mexican descent.
Uh-oh.
And they're going to become galvanized when they see this fighter of Mexican descent making a fighter they identify with look bad. And they're going to demand that a Jamal Charlo defend their honor, even though Jamal Charlo doesn't know who the fuck they are. David, if he plays his cards right, he could turn this into a whale of a fight.